very kind. It's so dark in here. I thought I would be able to see you all better. But anyhow, my name is Natalie. I'm from Squarespace. I thought we'd start at the logical place, which is introductions. I'll tell you guys a bit about Squarespace and a bit about my background as well before we delve into websites. But before we do, I'd also just love to know who you are. So I'm glad to see that at least half of you have websites. We're in the right direction here, and hopefully by the time we leave, the other half of you will be closer to having them as well. But I'd love to just go around quickly. Are you here? Who here is a professional photographer? Great. And who here is an aspiring photographer? Okay. And who here just does it for fun? Okay. And is anyone here not in photography at all, but just came here for the websites? Okay, one. Perfect. So hopefully we'll be able to have something for everyone today. So Squarespace is a web publishing platform that basically makes it easy for anyone to build a really exceptional website without requiring the technical skills to know how to build one. So I'll give you a bit of our company history, because I think that it would be helpful to know where we came from. So we have been around for 9 years. Our founder, Anthony, started Squarespace out of his dorm room in college with a loan of $20,000 from his father and a big idea, and really impressively grew it to be a profitable business within that first year in his dorm room. And about 3 years after that, he moved to New York, decided to take a crack at making a real business out of it, and grew Squarespace to be one of the premier content management systems of our time. Now, Anthony is an engineer and has always been really, really focused on design. So as the company grew, that element really grew with it. So we are about 120 people sitting here in Soho, and we have as many engineers as designers in our group, which make up about half of our company. So we've always really cared about both the aesthetics of what we're providing as well as the technology that we're using. And Anthony actually decided to start Squarespace because he wanted to build a website and couldn't find the tools to do so easily. And that kind of philosophy of building tools to help us sort of build what we want to build has really remained at the core of our company even 9 years later. So suffice it to say that the web has changed a tremendous amount over the last 5 years. And because we sort of wanted to continue to build websites that we ourselves would want to use and technology that we ourselves would enjoy using, Anthony made actually a fairly brave decision about 2.5 years ago to go out and raise a round of $40 million for a profitable business. This was quite a big and brave move to completely rebuild the platform from scratch and reimagine what is the website building platform of tomorrow. What does that look like? And it was a brave move because we have hundreds of thousands of customers who've been using this platform that's been stress tested for years. But we sort of felt like as things are moving and progressing, and people continue to use more and more mobile phones and tablets, and you need to optimize websites for different technologies and different devices to be able to do really, really cool things, rather than to continue to add new features to our existing platform and sort of put band-aids on something, we really wanted to build it from scratch and build something that would take us into the future. So I give you this background because a lot of the thought process that we went into as we sort of raised this money and had the mandate to be able to do that, we sort of found ourselves thinking about a lot of big questions. One of them was, how do we solve incredibly well for multimedia assets? So images, videos, a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of you in the room here and photographers in general care a lot about. And as such, we ended up actually, and what I'll show you today, came up with a solution that works really well for photographers, and that has been a vertical that we've been really interested in working with over the last year, and that I've worked with as well. So part of the information that we're going to bring today and talking about sort of what do you have on your website is a lot of the learnings that we've had as we've worked with hundreds of thousands of photographers over the past year. Another question that we had was, how do we create real efficiencies for people? So as website presence has become more and more important, and it's not just about your website, but some people have a blog separately, and you're selling online, and you have Facebook and Twitter and all these different places where you have to be. It gets to be quite cumbersome. And ultimately, if your core business is something else, if you're a photographer and not a website developer, it sort of becomes sometimes a bit overwhelming in terms of how do you spend your time. So we really wanted to think about how do we create efficiencies for people so that they can manage all of their content from one place. So what we built with our platform was a platform where you can build not only really beautiful website pages, so about pages, contact pages, pages that show the projects and the programs that you're offering, but also really stunning galleries, all in one platform, sophisticated blogs, so you can create sort of magazine-style blogs, which for photographers matters a lot. commerce, so that you can sell physical and digital goods, anything from workshops to prints to just the digital files that you want to sell. Have that all integrated in one platform so that you can really manage your content effectively, be able to pull and push content from one place to another. Sync it up with over 17 social media platforms. So again, let's say you have a new blog post, that rather than having to then go to Facebook to draw traffic to your blog post and to Twitter to draw traffic to your blog post, you could just automatically from your platform push, pull, and sync to all these different places and update your content around the web at the same time. So those are some of the things that we sort of thought about as we built these websites. And before I sort of delve into websites, I also wanted to give you a bit of my, hi, welcome, a bit of my personal background as well, because I think it's relevant here. So I, as Deborah mentioned, managed business development at Squarespace. But before I was at Squarespace, I was an entrepreneur. So I started a nonprofit about 4 years ago in the Middle East, which is totally different experience that I won't get into. But the point was, I had this idea, this nonprofit that I wanted to bring to life, and I needed a website to be able to do it. I had corporate sponsors that I wanted to get on board. I needed to raise money. I had a business that I wanted to start. And when I thought, oh, a website, I need to build a website. First I have a wonderful boyfriend who's a web developer, and I decided to ask him first. So he built me this website, which was really great, but then every time I needed to fix something or change something, I had to keep asking him to do it. Now, he was here, I was in the Middle East. Suffice it to say that with a long-distance relationship, I didn't want to have all our conversations be about IT support. I decided it wasn't a sustainable situation. Moved over to something really, really simple called Tumblr. Who here uses Tumblr? Yeah. Okay, so Tumblr is a blog. I love Tumblr, it's awesome. It's really, really simple to use. But ultimately, it's a blogging platform. It's for if you have new content and you want to add new information, it works really well. But for me, I had images that I wanted to share in galleries. I had donation forms that I wanted to put in there. I had much more dynamic content that a blog really wasn't the solution for me. And then I found Squarespace, and I built my site on Squarespace. So before I worked here, I was a customer. And for me, Squarespace worked incredibly well. And the reason for that was, for $10 a month, now it's $8, I was able to have a website that looked like I went out and paid someone $30,000 to build it for me. Added a lot of legitimacy to what I was doing. So when I was going to these corporate sponsors or I was going to a donor, it made me look very legitimate, helped me raise $100,000 to get my idea off the ground. And more than that, I had 24/7 customer support. So rather than having to ask my darling boyfriend, I had someone who was there available 24/7 to be able to answer all of my questions. It was a fully hosted solution, so nothing would ever break. Whenever we would have a campaign and we'd get a spike of traffic, I wouldn't have to worry about, is my site going to go down because of the servers? So it worked really, really well for me. And when I decided to come back to live in New York again and try to think about what did I want to do next, I decided to join Squarespace because I was really excited about helping other people bring their ideas to life and make them a reality in the same way that Squarespace had helped me do. So I think whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're a photographer that's trying to get your business off the ground, or a student that's looking to get a job, or anything of that nature, I think that it's really great to have a site that helps you look wonderful and affordable and to do it really easily. So that's our background, where we come from. And that's kind of the information that we're going to bring with us today into this conversation. So focusing on websites, there's sort of three things that we're going to delve into today. So the first thing is, why do you need a website? And from there, I think we'll go into what should be on your website, and then how should you build it. So this might sound like an obvious question, but I think it's relevant spending a little bit of time on for a moment, because today there's so many different places where you could be online. You could be on Facebook, you could be on Pinterest, you could take all your pictures and put them on Instagram. You could just have a blog. So why is a website necessary? And I think there are three main reasons here. So one is first impressions count. So if you're a photographer, and whether you are freelance and you want to get clients, or whether you are looking to be hired by advertising companies, or whatever it might be, you have 10 seconds to make an impression on someone. And the likelihood is, if it's a bride looking for a wedding photographer, it's a creative director looking for someone to hire for a beauty shoot, they're looking at a ton of portfolios, a ton of websites. So you really want to make a very, very striking impression. And to that end, you want to be able to not get lost in the mix of what's going on. So if you are on a discovery platform, which I highly recommend. I think it's great to be discovered, and you should be on Pinterest, and you should be on Behance and Dribbble, and you can write these down and look into them and join them and get your stuff out there. But when you're on these different platforms, there's a lot of noise of what's going on. So either there are other photographers who are also presenting their work. If you're on something like Facebook, you sort of have those little red messages on the top. Someone gets a message or there's an alert and they could get distracted from your page. So you really want to, if someone's interested enough to come and have a look at you, you really want to grab their attention, get them into your space, and really try to build an experience for them such that they sort of understand why should they stay here and continue to explore who you are and hopefully hire you. And finally, you're more than your portfolio. So it's great to be on these discovery platforms and sort of to put your work out there. But often when you're hired for so much more than just your work. Sometimes it's a matter of what is your philosophy. Most of the time, it's what's your personality. If I'm hiring a photographer for a shoot, is this someone that I want to work with? If it's something personal like a portrait shoot or a wedding, you really want to make sure that this person sort of is someone that you want in the mix. And really having a website and being able to express yourself in a meaningful way can be helpful in getting that across and helping someone make the decision to choose you over someone else. So moving over to what you should have on your website, we've been working with, sorry, I'm just going to let you, no, it's okay, go ahead. We've been working with so many photographers over the years, and particularly in this last year, we've been working really, really closely with a few dozens of really successful photographers. So I keep asking them, what are their secrets to success, and really learning from them also in terms of, their websites and their businesses, what makes them succeed. So there are a few things here that I think are important. So one is to show a selection of your best and favorite work. And I chose those words specifically because I think, again, going back to the last slide, you have 10 minutes to make a really great first impression. So you really want to put your best foot forward. But I think it's also important not to overwhelm someone with the whole kit and caboodle. You might want to choose a few pieces that you think summarize your work in the best possible light and just show those. I also chose the word favorite specifically in the sense that I think it's important that you sort of really pick the kind of work that you want to get. So I'm sure that over your careers and as you sort of build your portfolio, you're going to have a lot of work. Sometimes it's work that you are really passionate about. Sometimes it was maybe as a student something that was assigned to you. Sometimes it was a job that you took because it paid great money. Whatever it might be, you have this really diverse body of work. But ultimately, the work that you put online is the work that people are going to sort of imagine you in as they're hiring you. So, for example, if you want to be a beauty photographer, but really you've done a lot of weddings, just having a lot of wedding shots, might not necessarily convince someone who's hiring a beauty photographer that you're the right photographer for them. However, if you choose maybe some sort of up-close shots of the bride that are really, speak to those beauty shots, those can really help you get the kind of work that you want to get. Second is to show really beautiful, high-quality images. So let me ask this question. Who here is concerned that people are going to steal their images if they put them on the web? Okay. So that's a very valid concern that a lot of people share. So you're not the only one. I think, I sort of want to touch upon this point for a moment because whenever I give presentations, this is always the question that I get. And so rather than leave it to the end, let's address it up front. So I think, obviously copyright is incredibly important and something that's really dear, I think, to anyone who's creative and creating things, putting them out there. The reality is, today on the web, there isn't a way to protect against someone stealing your work. So you could use something like Flash or disable someone to be able to right-click and save an image. But ultimately, if I hit Command-Shift-4, I can take a screenshot of your image and I have it on my computer. So there's no real way to have security to prevent it from happening. There are a lot of platforms out there that will help you in terms of to police your images and try to find them, and that's a whole other conversation. But I think given that you can't beat them, if you will, I think you sort of have to think about, well, how do I then present my work in a way that protects me to the best of my ability, but also, given that allows me to sort of really present my work in the best possible way so that I can get the best possible jobs. So I think, rather than having really, really small images or put a markdown, watermark on your images, my personal recommendation is to choose a few images that you feel are your calling cards, the things that you want to be out there, that you want your name to be synonymous with, and put those on your site so that they look beautiful and huge, and that someone can really sort of be impressed by them the first moment that they see them. I think watermarks, it's a personal choice whether or not you want to have them, but I think given that, and again, depends where you are in your career and what you want to do, but the most successful photographers that we've spoken to, people who, like Rick Salmon, and who's a huge landscape photographer, and Don Flood, who's a very successful beauty photographer, they put huge images on their sites. And of course, there's the concern that someone might steal it, but I think more important for them is that someone might not hire them because they don't see their full potential. I think to that end, one way that you can protect against this is to make sure that there's metadata attached to each of your images, so that if someone does download your image and does want to use it in a legal way, that they know how to find you. And there are, again, other services that that exist that can help you sort of attach your name to your images to help prevent people stealing just because they don't know where it's coming from. Thirdly, to show your personality. So again, as we mentioned, people will hire you often based on your personality, and so you want to make sure that that comes across in your website. There are many different ways to do this, whether it's from an about page that's really compelling, whether it's from showing passion projects on your site in addition to the kind of work that you want to have. Blogging is a really awesome way to do this, to be able to talk about the kinds of work that you're doing, about a shoot, about the things that interest you, and really recommend that you do this. Fourthly, it's important to tell your customers what you're selling and make it easy for them to buy. So I'm simplifying this here, but who here has ever gone to a website and wasn't sure what they were supposed to do there? Okay, great. I mean, I'm sure we've all found ourselves in this situation before, and I think it's we can sort of solve for this really, really clearly. If you're selling workshops, be sure to communicate that that is what you're selling. If it's a matter of you just want to build your brand as a photographer, you can make it very clear that that's what that is about. But again, you don't want to. You want to make sure that you're very, very clear about when someone's coming to your site, what are they going to get here? Why should they be here? And lead them through that process. And then finally, to create relevant content so that you're top of mind. So again, the more relevant content that you have, the more people are going to come back to your site, and you're going to remain. So for example, if you're a wedding photographer and you have information about that, about the weddings that you're doing, and cool creative ideas around that, it's more likely that people are going to come back to your site, and when they need a wedding photographer, you're going to be top of mind. Secondly, it improves your SEO. So Squarespace, for example, is built so that if you have great content, you're able to essentially optimize it to be search engine friendly on every page, on every piece of content. And a lot of other platforms like ours out there are built to do the same. So it's just important, again, that you sort of drive traffic and give people a reason to come back and to pay attention. So here are a couple of examples of people who I think do a fairly good job at this. So Sarah is a photographer, naturally. She does lifestyle and travel. So she sort of very clearly sort of separated out what are the different kinds of work that she does, so that if someone's going to hire her for one over another, they can really direct themselves to that particular place. She has these huge, beautiful images that really show her work and present her in a great light. She has some background information about what she does, her accolades, press that she's received. So she really sort of builds her credibility as a photographer. Makes it easy to contact her, and she also talks about what kind of work she's available for. So she makes it very, very clear in terms of what she does and what she doesn't do. As well as having a blog where she covers the kind of photo shoots that she does and what's interesting about it. And so on and so forth, to again create relevant content and really build her personality and the kind of thought and knowledge that she brings with her as she builds websites. As she not builds websites, but does photography shoots. So Nathan Gilmer does weddings and portraits. Again, sort of separates out those two elements on his website. He decided, rather than starting off with just huge images, to have more informational. More for an informational site to help people navigate where to go to. But again, has really striking galleries. If we go into them. Sorry, the internet's a little bit slow, so you'll have to bear with me. Here we are. So he's decided to actually just show a few specific shoots rather than sort of meld them all together. Again, it's a personal choice in terms of what's the story that you want to tell. And I think, again, he wanted to have a very personal approach here. And again, he, I think, manages his blog really effectively in the sense that he sort of mixes in both personal stories as well as covering shoots that he does and talking about the actual work that he's doing. And the reason that I really like what he does here, so there's a great wedding photographer named Lisa Devlin who I actually heard speak here at B&H a number of months ago. And I remember she shared a tip that, that I know a lot of other photographers who are sort of are in the portrait or wedding space or do client work do, which is that they'll often seed images on their blog or on Facebook before they actually hand it over to the client. So that first night they might edit one image or sort of put a few on the web. And the reason for that is, again, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So, if an image is out there on the web, someone might not know exactly who the photographer is. And maybe the bride's on her honeymoon and you can't get to her to know who that photographer is. However, if you put it on your blog and maybe from your blog you link it to your Facebook, so there's that one image there on Facebook that she's going to share, or send the link to your blog so that other people can see those images. Again, it's essentially sort of free marketing. It helps draw traffic to your site. It helps bring them into your environment so that they can, if someone else is looking, they can maybe see the other work that you do, your availability, and is really effective in that way. Both Nathan and Sarah do this, which I think is, again, really, really smart. But what I love is, again, he mixes this up with other things that he's interested in. So often, he has a picture of his wife. He adds to this different elements. Sorry, I don't know what that beeping is, but hopefully it'll stop. But he adds elements that really show his personality. So especially in sort of more personal kind of work, it really comes across, who he is, would it be fun to work with him, and why should you choose him for your wedding. And then finally, I actually chose Rick's site. Rick Salmon is a landscape photographer who's on Squarespace as well. And he has these really, beautiful galleries that he's split up into. Again, he has these really gorgeous, gorgeous pictures. But what's interesting, if you go to Rick's homepage, rather than have these images, he has his blog on his site. So really, a lot of people come to Rick as sort of a thought leader in photographer as well, and that's sort of where the core of his business is today, rather than actually being hired to do photo shoots. So he speaks and he does workshops, and so for him, it made sense for him for his front page to be his blog, and then for all the galleries and everything else to be supplementary to that. So I think this is just all to say that there's a lot of flexibility. There's no right or wrong way in terms of how you should set up your website. I think a lot of it depends on what you are trying to express, and again, sort of to make it clear in terms of what you're trying to get across, you might need a different structure. So again, it's important sort of to do all the things that we had discussed previously, but the order in which you do them is really up to you. So now that we've discussed, what we need on our website, I think let's move into ways to create it. So again, I told you guys a little bit about my story in terms of trying out different ways of creating a website and ultimately ending up in a fully hosted solution. But I think these are really the three general ways that you could build a website. So one is you could code it yourself. So at one point, I decided to learn some HTML, CSS. Thought I'd build for a different site, a site by myself. Which I was really, really proud of in the end, because I built it myself. I'd had my name all over it, but ultimately it was a very, very plain-looking site. It wasn't very sophisticated in its functionality. Couldn't do what I needed it to do, and I was spending so much time essentially being my own IT support when I should have been focusing on the core of my business. So the advantage of coding it yourself is, again, the fact that ultimately if you know how to code, you can build anything that you want and the sky is the limit. But obviously the limitations are there. You have to have the skill set to do it. You probably want you to be able to do it really well and for it to be your competitive advantage in order for you to spend your time there. The second is to hire someone to build it for you. Has someone here hired someone to build a website for them in the past? Great. 3, 4? Okay, interesting. So I think that, again, the great part about hiring someone to build it for you is that you could ultimately commission anyone to build anything for you. Again, the sky's the limit. But ultimately, you are subject to the decisions that they make in terms of how to manage your website. So for example, if 3 years ago you hired someone to build a website for you and they decided to build it in Flash, fast forward to today, and you wouldn't be able to, to view it on your iPhone or on an iPad. Or you might be handed over a website that's hard for you to manage over the long term. And let's say you want to add a new gallery, or you want to be able to have an integration with Pinterest all of a sudden. You have to keep going back to that developer in order for help. So this is not to say that this is a bad way to go about it. Sometimes you might want to do something very custom. But I think it's just important, and again, as we're going to sort of go into some things to bear in mind as you're building your website, I would just bear important that especially with the first two, the maintenance of a website takes up just as much time and is just as important as that initial process of getting your website set up for the first time. So you really want to think about, as I'm building a website, what will help me maintain it over the long term in a way that makes sense for me and is efficient. So just things to bear in mind. Finally, you have the option of doing it yourself with a hosted website solution like Squarespace. So again, in a very, very general sense, there are over 60 platforms out there where you can essentially choose from a number of preset templates or structures that you can put your information into. And then from there, you will have a different, again, depending on from platform to platform, different flexibility in terms of how much you can customize it and brand it and make it your own. And then, generally using very easy tools to be able to maintain it over time and update it. And it's fully hosted, so you don't have to worry about servers, and if you get more traffic, will your site go down, and so on and so forth. Again, I started that sentence by saying there are over 60 platforms out there that you can choose from. So it's a lot. How do you choose which one to use? So I'm going to show you Squarespace today, and I'm sure that you'll be very impressed with it. And I'm a little bit biased, but I think my biggest recommendation for you before you choose Squarespace or any other platform is to spend a few hours looking at a few different platforms that exist out there. All of them have free trials, and just playing around a little bit to see which one is the one that you feel most comfortable with and is most intuitive to you. Because ultimately, as we sort of mentioned, the maintenance of a website over the long term is the most important part. And the biggest investment that you're going to make with your website is sort of that upfront investment of getting all your content in there. And you're ultimately going to end up with something that, even if it could be better, it's going to be really, if you have a functioning website, it's really hard to decide, okay, I'm going to take a whole weekend and spend a few hours and decide to move it. So I really urge you to to take some time, make sure that you're making the right decision for yourself as you build your website. So to that end, as you're looking at a handful of different websites, from Behance to Cargo to WordPress to a number of other ones that you could look at in Squarespace, hopefully, here are some things that I think are important to consider, and some of the things that we also asked ourselves as we sort of rebuilt our platform. So one is, does the platform offer the feature set that I need? So again, I mentioned to you that when we relaunched our platform, it was really important to us to have an all-in-one platform where you could create both sophisticated blogs and galleries and commerce and pages all in one. Traditionally, those functionalities have tended to be quite separate in terms of platforms. So for example, if we take a photographer, sometimes you might be using one platform like Cargo or Behance for your gallery. You might host your blog in a completely different platform like Tumblr or WordPress and connect the two, but the content is separate. You have separate logins and you're managing all your stuff in separate places. And then maybe you're using even a third platform like SmugMug or PhotoShelter or something like that to be able to sell your prints. And maybe if you're selling physical goods like DVDs to a workshop or T-shirts or whatever it might be, you might be using even a third thing like Shopify or something like that to be able to sell physical goods. So again, I think you need to ask yourself in terms of what is it that that I'm trying to use my website for, and does the website allow me to do sort of what I need, again, efficiently in one place to be able to save time. And I think also another thing to ask yourself as you're doing that is, what do I expect to want to do, or that I might want to do 6 months from now or a year from now, and will this platform allow me to scale with that, so that again I won't find myself in a situation 6 months from now where I need to start my website from scratch. Secondly is, how much customization does the platform allow? So again, this really varies from platform to platform. And I think here I sort of want to make a distinction between a template and a theme. So sometimes you'll go to a website platform and they'll tell you we have hundreds of themes for you to choose, hundreds of templates for you to choose from. But really, I want to make a distinction. A template, the way that I understand it, or the way that I use that term, is sort of an architectural structure that the way that the content is organized, that you can put content into. And then I would consider sort of a theme, sort of the coat of paint that goes on over it. So the colors, the fonts, the width of the columns, that again, sort of what gives it that personality and gives it style afterwards. And often those two terms are used really interchangeably. So some people will say that they have hundreds of templates, but really often it could be one or two templates that have a number of different color palettes or sort of different permutations to them. Which is not to say that you might not find something within that is perfect for you. But just before you sort of see the number, hundreds of templates, of course I'm going to find something, pay attention to that. And then again, how much flexibility do you have within that to make changes? So if you want to add custom fonts, or colors, or be able to do little things that, again, I'm sure that each of you are building your brand and are doing it in a very purposeful way, that you can really make your website look your own. So some websites will allow you to edit the CSS or allow you to change the fonts. Some won't. So again, just one thing to pay attention to. Thirdly is, how will the site integrate with my greater online presence? So when we relaunched our platform, it was really important for us to build all of our templates using responsive design, meaning that they respond to the size and the shape of the device and the browser that you're looking at your website from, so that you're essentially putting your best foot forward no matter where you're making that first impression. If it's a creative director who's flipping through on an iPad, or a bride on her phone, or someone who's sitting at their desk. Again, I think it's really, really important that at least at a very, very bare minimum that your site have a mobile version to it. So don't build it in Flash. I think, again, this really varies from platform to platform how this is handled. There's some platforms like WordPress where you can choose premium themes. Some of them are responsive, some of them are not. So again, you want to at least at a minimum make sure that there is a mobile version of your site. I'm personally a big fan of responsive design because as technology is changing so quickly, it really allows you sort of to keep up with the new devices and new trends without having to reinvent the wheel every time. So for example, if 6 months ago I built a website, I might not have known to optimize it for an iPad mini, whereas today I know that that's something that a lot of people have. So it gives you that flexibility. The second is, again, as you're using a lot of social media platforms, how does your website integrate with those different discovery platforms where you want your content to be? So different sites will push, pull, or sync with different platforms. Again, ask yourself, what are the ones that I'm using? Is it just Facebook? Is it Facebook and Twitter? Is it Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest? What are the tools that I need to integrate with to make my life easier as well? Fourthly, what is the real cost? Free is awesome. I think no one would argue with that. But I think, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So ultimately you end up paying for something in one way or another. A lot of platforms out there have what's called a freemium model, where there's a free product that you start with, and then you pay as you need to grow and need new features and need more storage, you have sort of premium plans that you pay on top of that. Ultimately, no matter what you choose, at a very, very bare minimum, if you want to have a professional looking site, meaning that you don't have a platform's ads running on it, that you can have your own domain, so instead of nataliegorvich.wordpress.com, I can have nataliegorvich.com, you will ultimately end up paying at a very, very minimum $5 to $10 per month for your website. In addition to that, you'll have to buy a domain. So I think just bear in mind, that ultimately that's, at a very bare minimum, that's where it's going to come to. And you can find great things for $5 to $10 per month. But I think it's just, as you choose your platform, if you're considering doing something that's free for the beginning, remember that the biggest investment you're making is that time that you spend up front to get your website set up. So whatever it is that you choose, if it's free, it's going to be easier for you to upgrade within that platform rather than to move to something else. So I think it's important to sort of to bear that in mind as you're making that decision, that you're ultimately also making that purchasing decision. And to that end, I think that it's important to ask yourself, can I export my content? So because your needs might change over time, or maybe you do choose something free and then you decide you want something nicer and you want to have the best out there for what you're paying. it would be ideal if you could move your content from one place to another. So on our platform, we allow you to import from WordPress, from Tumblr, from a number of different sites. You can bring in your content, and we will import all that in. But also with one click of a button, you can export your entire Squarespace site to WordPress format, such that if you ever decide to leave us, if we're ever not serving you as well as you need to be served, you can very, very easily take your content and move to a different place. And for us, it was a matter of we feel that people should stay with us because they want to, not because they're stuck. But again, another thing to look at. So without further avail, I will show you how Squarespace works, just to give you at least one example of how you can build a website really, really easily and hopefully successfully so. Again, this is just one of many, many platforms out there. But hopefully, if nothing else, this will inspire you to go home, for the half of you here that don't have a website, that you can go home and do this in a few hours yourself today. So this is our website. As I mentioned, the way that Squarespace works is there are a number of templates that you can choose from that all work in really, really distinct ways that are optimized for different purposes. So with each website, you can build anything. So you can build pages, you can build blogs, you can build galleries, you can build stores. But often you can think about these templates as a starting point to help you organize your content in a way that makes sense. So I opened up a few of them here so that you can get a sense of how some of them work. This is Momentum, a really beautiful gallery template. You can look at these images, you can set them up to have information linked to them. You can tell this in a storyboard kind of format where you can see all the images at once. But as I mentioned, with every template, you can build just regular pages, about pages, contact pages. We have a really awesome map functionality and contact form. Stores, so you can sell physical and digital goods. Here, you can buy a dog collar, add it to our cart. It'll show up in our cart here, and we can check out and purchase that. And again, you can sell anything that you want. And we have some people selling garbage on our platform, believe it or not, packaged in a really beautiful way. It's actually really awesome. And so this is one store, and as I mentioned, you can build blogs with these as well. So and again, you can create really cool looking blogs, put images and any kind of multimedia asset videos into any blog, and they can look quite cool. So that's Momentum. As I mentioned, these are built using responsive design, which for anyone who hasn't seen this in action yet is pretty cool. So as I minimize this, as you can see, the image is changing around to be optimized for a different dimension. And again, if you can imagine, if this is a mobile phone, this would optimize in that way. So now, rather than having my menu across the bottom, it would open up in this way so that I can click through this in a vertical way. My cart is down here on the bottom as I'm shopping on my mobile phone or on a smaller screen, rather than hovering on the top, and so on and so forth. And this, as you can see, changes dynamically. Similarly, Flatiron, which is a different template, will also change as I change the distance and the size of the browser and device. So Flatiron is a different style of template. This is basically an indexed format where you can put anything into any one of these pages. So they could be a blog page, a gallery page, a shop page. You can navigate between them and through them. Again, create a blog, create a shop, anything that you want, you can do here. And also, and there are over 25 templates on our platform that you can go through, and they all work in really distinct ways. I just want to give you a bit of a sense of the capabilities. So this is Ishimoto. So this has a huge, big sliding gallery. And again, any kind of page that you want with it. And now with any of our templates, you have a lot of flexibility that I'll go into as I delve into the platform. So let's say we decided we wanted to create a site like Ishimoto. Generally speaking, it was the starting point for us that we felt was close to what we wanted. You can clone any site, put in your name, your email, and create a password. And we're going to clone that demo site for you, so you'll have a copy of it. So as you clone the website, with your Squarespace account, we actually give you we will go out and buy a domain for you if you don't already have a domain. And if not, then you can also, if you have one that you already are using, so let's say I already own natalie.com, we can just map it so that you can use that over the long term. But in the short term, we will give you a temporary domain so you can just start building. And this is the back end of Squarespace. There are 5 general sections here, and this is the site manager. So this eye right here is the preview mode. It shows you what your site looks like, and from there you can customize all of the styles of the site. We'll jump into that in a moment. This A is your content manager. So it's where all of your content lives. You can create all sorts of different types of content here. So from a folder that gives you a drop-down menu, to a huge gallery page, to an events calendar, to a blog, to just a regular page, to links to a store. And within here, you can change the order of these pages. You can move them around so that they're not linked. So let's say you're working on your About page, but you're not ready for it to be live yet. You can move it into a not linked section so that it doesn't show up in your navigation until you're ready. You have analytics that show you, your activity shows you who's coming to your site from where are they spending time, where are they coming from, what are they searching on Google and Bing to get to you, so that you can market to them more effectively. Some settings and commerce. So let's just jump into settings for a moment. From here, there are a number of different things that you can do. So you can change your site title. I'm going to give it my name. You can have a description, add a meta description, so that when someone Googles your site, you can choose what is that one sentence that shows up underneath that tells people what you're about. You can add a logo image. You can add a favicon. A favicon is this image right up here. So this is our Squarespace logo, so that again everything's really branded. And there are other things that you can do from this back end as well. So I'm going to save these changes. You can connect your social accounts, and I'll show you. I'm going to connect these now just so that I can show you as we're going through this how useful this can be. But you can connect your Twitter account. I will allow that. So you basically would authenticate your Twitter account. Now it's connected. And you can connect any kind of account that you'd want. I'll connect my Facebook as well. So here, as you connect them, you'd see all your different accounts. And as you click into them, you can see what you can do with those accounts. So you can either download data from one of your social media accounts. So you can do that with Facebook. Sorry, not with Facebook. Sorry, with Twitter, with Foursquare, and with Instagram. With anywhere that you'd have a feed, you can pull that in and display that on your site. But on most of them, what you can do is show a push option, so that if you have a new blog post, new images, a new calendar event, a new workshop that you're selling, you can automatically publish those to the different places that you want to publish. And I'll show you how that works in a moment. Other things that you can do from here is you can add multiple contributors to your site and give them different roles. So a store manager, a content editor, and so forth. You can move templates at any point. So maybe if you find that Ishimoto, you wanted to try it out, but it doesn't work for you, you can do that. You can import your content if you have a site that already exists in a different place. And we'll bring in, for example, for WordPress, we'd bring in not only all the pages and all the images and everything of that nature, but also with the blog posts, all the comments, all of the metadata, so that if you do have different websites or different blogs in different places and wanted to consolidate them, it can be quite simple to do that. And there's a lot more that I won't delve into here. So until we have questions, if you have any. So just going back to the content manager, or I'll go to the preview mode for a moment. So this is what our site is currently looking like. I changed my site title to reflect my name, but really it's just a clone of that template that we chose. From here, down here on the bottom, there are 3 icons that you see. This wheel will take me back to the site manager, which is where we were a moment ago. And this paintbrush will open up a style editor on the left-hand side of the screen, where you can start editing what your site looks like. So here we have a list of colors for different parts of your site. This is a site background. And with just a simple color wheel, you can change what that color is, you can move it around, and so on and so forth. If you know specifically what your color is, maybe it's white, you can just type it in and it'll automatically change, so you can have it be very on brand for you. And do you see the blue lines as I'm hovering over change? over the navigation. So basically, as I'm going over these, it'll show me what are these different elements related to in terms of what they'll change. Similarly, I can just click, if I can hover over a particular section, like the navigation, click on it, and it'll filter out all the style elements that are related to that particular part of my site. I'm going to click on Show All here. But moving on, you can change the typography. So you have all of the Google fonts here, as well as 65 Typekit fonts, and a Typekit font integration. Typekit's an awesome service to buy fonts, so that if you have any custom fonts, you can pull them in. Also, if you have a custom font, you can bring that in using CSS, if you're either technical enough to do it, or you can have someone help you to do that. And as you can see in the site title, as I sort of, similarly to the color wheel, I can see all these changes as I'm going through them. And the nice thing here, again, is, rather than having to know what all these are, I can really see, is this the right font for my site? I can change the site title. So I can decide how large or small I want it to be. Again, I don't need to know what pixels are to be able to find the right size for myself. And scrolling further down, again, there are a lot of other ways that I can start customizing this. I can change the site padding. I can change the portfolio height. I can, moving down, decide to align my header in the middle or stacked on the right. So I can really start customizing this, and all of a sudden, this doesn't look at all like the template that I chose, and is really my own. And I think that that's one of the really nice things here, is that very flexibly you can make this look any way that you want it to. So I started making this look fairly ugly, so I'm going to reset it, as you can do. And I'm going to just click out of style mode here, and go over to my backend again, where we can start creating content. So again, because we cloned this site, you will see all the different pages here that were in that demo. But just as easily, I can either use them as essentially sort of a template for how I want to organize my About page, or I can just delete them if I want to create my own pages. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete a few pages here. And again, as I showed, we can add as many pages of any of these types as we want. So let's start with an About page. We add a new page, give it a name, and as we give it a name, we can also give it a URL, so that this would be, if I have natalie.com, this would be natalie.com/about, and I can choose what I want that appendage to my URL to be, and save that. And the general logic behind Squarespace that you need to know is, essentially behind this blank-looking page is an invisible 12-column grid. And what you do is you add blocks to that grid. So text blocks, images, galleries, videos, forms, maps, any page that you want to create, any kind of content that you would think that you want to put on your site, you can put on any page. In fact, you can put it anywhere where you can edit content on Squarespace. So in any blog post, in any event calendar, in any sidebar or footer, you still have essentially the ability to add any of these items and to be able to lay out what that looks like. So let's add an image block. When you add an image, it's really very simple. You basically can drag and drop an image, and it's uploaded. And in fact, as that wheel is turning, we're not just uploading an image, but we're actually resizing it into 8 different sizes, from a thumbnail to 1,500 pixels, so that, as I showed you, the site is built using responsive design. So again, it's going to look different on a mobile phone than it is going to look on my big iMac that I use in the office. And on my mobile phone, I need a smaller image than I need on that iMac. You wouldn't even notice this. It's not, I think, noticeable to the naked eye. But as I changed that, do you remember that image of the big dog that I changed? We actually were dynamically switching out the image to go grab the one closest to size of the one that you need, so that the load time is as short as possible. So again, we have 10 minutes to make a great impression. We don't want that impression to be, this image is slowly loading to this page. So that's the way that we upload images. And now you can do all sorts of things here. So we can give this a caption. Let's call it caption. Decide where you want it to display. So maybe you want it to overlay. And again, as you're making these changes, you can see them happening on the screen, which is really helpful just to, as you're trying to lay something out for it to look the way that you want it to. Again, over any image, you can choose the focal point of that image. So maybe, I want it to be their heads. And the point of choosing a focal point is that if there's ever a thumbnail or you need to crop in any way, it'll always crop around the focal point of the image. So again, you're always putting your best foot forward, and you're not showing a thumbnail of this white space in the corner of the image. Again, hovering over this, I can click on this pencil, and that essentially opens up a very lightweight photo editor called Aviary that we've integrated with. You can do things like crop your images to different dimensions. And this is really helpful if you're uploading a number of different images and maybe they're different dimensions for some reason. You can have them all be square or all be 3x2 and edit that fairly easily. And again, you can do things like change the contrast or the brightness, really lightweight tools to do that. You can create click-through URLs so that you can click and go to a website. You can have a light box so that when you click on it, the image will show up really large and beautifully. And I'm going to add one more image and text in a text box so that I can show you how the layout engine fully works. So we added this second image here. I'm going to save that. I'm also going to grab some text. So in any page, any blog post, will generally start you off with a text block that you can go ahead and delete if you don't want it, or use, as you generally probably will use on a page. So I have some text here. This is the text block. The text block works just as any WYSIWYG editor would, or Word if you're familiar with it. I just copy and pasted text into it, which you can do. You can just type into it, delete, make things bold or italicized. You can create links to take you to either a separate website, or a link could be to a file. So maybe if you wanted to have a certain document that you upload or anything of that nature, you can do that. And you can also create different styles here. So headings and maybe subheadings. And again, in that style editor that I showed you, you can define what these different headings look like, so that rather than having to go every time and sort of change that, your site will look consistent across the board. So now we have these 3 blocks, a text block and 2 image blocks. And the way that Squarespace works is you can basically just move these blocks around and create rows, columns, insert them, float them around text. Nothing ever goes well in a demo, does it? So you can move these things around, and they will resize and resnap to the grid to look good relative to one another. So again, I can change their size relative to one another. I can start creating really, really cool looking layouts with this. So if I want to have this work with text, so I have this column here. Maybe I'll bring this over as well. I'll insert that right beneath here. I seem to have lost it. It's temperamental at times, but I promise you it works beautifully. Ooh. Here we are. So let's say I want to move this around. I can also float this text so that it'll wrap around the text. Maybe I'll bring this image up here. So it'll wrap around the text, and then as I change the size of the image, the text will wrap around it, and so on and so forth. And now if I want to view what this page is looking like, it looks more or less like this. We have this text, this image that wraps around, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, you can really style these pages any way that you want. Now with Ishimoto, if we add a gallery page, oh, that's not what I wanted to add. If we add a gallery page, let's call this photos. This works similarly to the way that I showed you that the image uploader works. So we can just take a bunch of images, just grab 4 here, and upload them. And with a gallery, you can upload multiple images at the same time. These, again, are all resizing. It's going to take a moment because the internet's a little bit slow, but hopefully not too long. And basically, as these are uploading, once you have these, you can change the order of these images. Again, choose the focal point, all the things that I showed you in the image block you can do. But another cool thing about the gallery block is that you can also add videos here. So you can add videos basically anywhere that they're embedded on the web. So if you click here, you put the video here. You just take the URL. You don't even need the embed code. And we'll not only upload the video, but we'll also take in all of the metadata attached to that. So the title, the description, a thumbnail, as it has it in this one here. And this video, again, you can decide to put it anywhere that you want. So let's put it here. We can view what this gallery looks like. So this gallery is going to look like the main gallery that we saw in that demo content. Again, we can play the video right from here. Looks pretty great, and so on. But just going back to our pages, each template essentially has a default gallery type that is unique to that template. So for Ishimoto, it's that big sliding gallery. For Momentum, it was that big image that you can put information next to and sort of go have the momentum of each image go ahead, and Flatiron was that index. However, you can basically create any kind of gallery within any template by using the gallery block. So if we go to our About page, or maybe let's just create a new page. And let's call this Photo Shoot. I don't know why I got into caps. Photo Shoot, April 2013. In addition to the text and image blocks that I showed you, where we can create from that, you can create an About page, you can create just a project page or sort of talk about a particular shoot. You can also have a gallery block, and that gallery block has two elements to it, design and content. So content, either I can just upload images as I showed you before, grab those however many that I want and upload them here, or I can use an existing gallery. So let's use, we can either use this one that I just created, or I'm just going to use the demo content just because there's more of it, although we can always go ahead and delete that. And then from there, I can choose what the design of that gallery. So this is a grid format. I can choose how many templates, how many images I want to have per line, and how much distance do I want to have between them. I can choose, instead of that, I can choose a slideshow. So here's a slideshow. I can choose to autoplay it so that it changes every 3 seconds. I want to add a control so that people can click through. I have these thumbnails here beneath, so I can change the size and the distance, or I can take them off altogether. I'm going to keep them on. And again, if these images have titles and descriptions linked to them, you can choose where you want to display them. So on the top, on the bottom, wherever it is. So you have a lot of flexibility here. So maybe there are certain things that you like about one template, but their default is that sliding gallery, and maybe it's Ishimoto, and you decide you want to have a slideshow. Here's a slideshow in Ishimoto. Yes, here's this. And as we click through it, we can see the images and so forth. So you have a lot of flexibility. And again, you have flexibility in terms of both how you show your images. But what's much cooler, I think, about that gallery block is you can pull content from different places. So let's say we had a blog. And this is the way that our blog works. So let's call this a blog. We can add a new post. So let's give it a title. And then again, the content of our blog is just as we would build it just as we would build any page. So we have the same invisible 12 columns. We can create any kind of block there. So in here, we can also create a gallery block and choose images from a particular gallery and choose to display it in whatever way we'd like to. And what's cool about that is, imagine if you have a gallery, and maybe your gallery is of a particular shoot that you did. Rather than having to have that gallery live completely separately from your blog, you can sort of pull that gallery block, that content, into a blog post and talk about that shoot that you did. So it's really cool how you can sort of repurpose that content and create efficiencies for yourself as you do it. So as a blog, just while we're on this for a moment, you can publish it, you can schedule it for a later date, if you so choose. You can create drafts or leave it for review. Sorry, that's not what I wanted to do. So let's publish it. You can add tags and categories as you would expect to be able to. You can choose whether you want to allow comments and how you want to moderate that in your settings. But again, if I click over here in terms of the social accounts, here are now the 2 social accounts that I linked before. So if I turn these on, I basically have an option of what it is. When I hit save and publish, I can save and publish and push to those sites that I've linked with my Squarespace account. So I can choose to say, check out my new blog post. I can choose to have the URL or the title, and really, again, make it very easy for me to share my content in all the different places where I'd want to be discovered on the web with just one click of a button. I'm going to turn that off. For everyone's sake. The other thing I think that's important is that in every piece of content in Squarespace is built to be SEO optimized. Sorry, search engine optimized. So basically, if on a blog post you have the ability to have an excerpt, which is where that alt text is taken from, I'm going to save and publish this blog post so we can see it. But the same exists for any image or any other piece of content that you're going to have on the web. So if we go to Photos, and we click into one of these images to edit them, you can give it a title and description, this again, this description is what that metadata, the alt text will be pulled from. Again, with any image that you add, you can also decide to push it to any of your social media sites, and so on and so forth. So that's all built in. And just one last thing that I'm going to show you before, right? Maybe two things I'll show you. So one is the store. So I think to your question, how can you sell things online? So if we wanted to sell, let's say, prints, you can sell both physical and digital goods. So let's say we want to sell prints. We can add an item, choose a few images to display of that print that you're selling. Let's imagine these are all the same image. I wonder what happened here. We can give it a price. So let's say it's $100, just to keep things round. Choose how many we have in stock. Maybe we've printed, 100 of them, or they're unlimited. If you say that something, you have a certain amount in stock, every time that it's purchased, the stock level will automatically go down by 1, so that you will never sell anything that you don't have in stock. You can also set alerts for yourself, so that you can say, I want to be alerted every time my stock level runs beneath 20, so that I know to go out and print some more. You can also create variables. So maybe let's create a variable called size, color, paper, so on and so forth. So let's say size, this is a 4x6 print, and we have another variable that's $200, that is 5x7. And maybe the 5x7 one isn't selling so well, so I'm going to put it on sale for just $150. So again, with these products, you can put in the prices. I don't know, we have an issue going on here, but that's fine. You can put in a description, put in some text here, and so on and so forth, and save and publish that. So now if you view the store, again, if we had multiple items, we could see them all in the store. If we go into here, here's our print. We can click through these different images. You can choose to lightbox it so that when it opens up, it looks really beautiful. We have our different options. So we have our 4x6, which is $100, and 5x7 is $150 on sale. And I'm going to add that to my cart, and we can, again, see the checkout process. And this is a trial that I just created, so it won't let me check out. But the checkout page will look fairly similar to what I showed you in the demo site. Accepts all major credit cards. You can choose your shipping options, coupons, taxes, so on and so forth.
Can you pay with PayPal?
Excuse me?
PayPal?
Can you pay with PayPal? So actually, you cannot pay with PayPal. If you wanted to, you could always embed a PayPal button. But this particular commerce platform, we use a payment processor called Stripe, which is actually what we run our multi-million-dollar business off of, and are incredibly happy with them. They're a fairly young company. They came out about 2.5 years ago, but a lot of technology companies like ours, like Foursquare, are using them. They just have a really wonderful solution, really smart technology. The reason that we chose them is for two reasons. One is that they have a technology that has allowed us to build essentially a shopping experience that, as you can see, looks really, really native to every template. So rather than having a shopping experience where you click on a button and it takes you to a completely different site for your shopping experience, or it's a PayPal button and the checkout page looks totally nothing like what you have, the brand that you've built. They have a technology that allows us to take in all the fonts that you've chosen, the colors that you've chosen, and really style that so that it looks like you paid someone $30,000 to build you a website. And also the merchant setup is super easy. So it takes 3 minutes and you can get paid right away. So we really love Stripe, and that's basically how you would create a store. If you wanted to create a digital product, very similarly, let's call this image. You can sell an image, you could sell an audio file, a video file, books, whatever it is that you'd want to sell here. You could put in a thumbnail image here. And when we give it a price, and let's say $100, here you could put in the file of the digital file that you'd want to deliver to someone once they paid. And once they pay, then we'll deliver to them through a secure email that only they can download. So that's the way that this works. And there's much more that I can show you about Squarespace. Our event calendar is really cool. Our plans start at just $8 per month, and that includes world-class hosting, so that your site will never go down. We have a shared hosting. We host our platform on the same platform, so basically it's infinitely scalable. If you get all of a sudden, a ton of hits, it's not going to change. Your site will never go down, and we can really scale with you.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.